There goes the prompt. Awesome. Oops, I don't have my camera on. I'm sorry. I want everyone to see me as I'd like to see you. If you want to turn your camera on, it's always an option. There I am. Good afternoon. Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to our financial aid and FAFSA, but what I'm starting to call saving money for college. How do you save for college? How do you prepare for college by finances? Thank you, Kiefer. Kiefer's turned on his camera. Awesome. And it's completely optional. It's completely optional. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I see some new names here. So what I'm going to ask, and maybe I just haven't noticed your name before, try to look at all the names. What I'm going to ask is for everyone and those of you who are here, you know the deal. Let us know what school you're from, what grade you're going to. So if you're in the 11th and you're moving to the 12th, let us know. Put that in the chat for us. And I promise you today, you won't just be hearing my voice. I'm going to tap on your shoulder. I want to hear from our students as well. I have a list of things to cover, so I'll get through that stuff as quickly as I can, but I want you to hear from you. I want peers to hear from each other. I see we're also joined by Chad Jordan. Chad, get ready because I'm going to ask you to talk about your scholarship initiative. I want students to understand it, know more about it. How can they link? So just be prepared, Chad. At some point, I'll come to you. I like to do that every now and then, but Chad's ready for it. He's ready for it. All right, we got folks from Coral Springs, Everglades High School, and going to the 10th grade. Awesome. Thank you, Alexis, so much. All right, so continue putting that in the chat, especially if this is your first time joining us, or if you're relatively new. Maybe this is your second or third time attending a Bridge to Life event, a B2L session. And again, we're so thankful and happy that you joined us on a Friday evening at 6 p.m. There's so many other things you guys can be doing, and yet you're here with us. So thank you for joining. I'm going to get started. And Chad Jordan said, got it. Chad from Fort Lauderdale High School, home of the Flying L's. And L stand for levitate. There we go. All right. So my name is Tron Lippett, proud member of Bridge to Life. And we're going to jump right into this evening's presentation. For those of you that attended last week, I'm going to cover some of the same information you saw last week, but I'm going to add in, I'm going to sprinkle in some stuff that I didn't have a chance or an opportunity rather to talk about last week. So pay close attention. This will be a good refresher for some of you, and for others, this will be some new information. So when it comes to scholarships, when it comes to saving for college, there's one thing that I think every student should consider, and that's scholarships. How do you pay for school? And I'm sure most of you have already started working on scholarships, especially if you attended our previous financial aid FAFSA night. But there are three types of awards that we're going to talk about tonight, and I'm going to drill down into two of them. One, institutional awards, which we're starting to the left of the screen, and that's a need or merit-based award provided by a college or university. I'll explain that because sometimes students get a little confused by that. Number two, and I'll start with this one, FAFSA, funding that is available exclusively to students attending a post-secondary education institution in the U.S. And then the third one that we're going to dive into, and this is where I'm going to lean on some of our students that are with us, private awards, awards funded by companies, service groups, foundations, organizations, and even individuals. And no, Chad, I don't have a Tron scholarship. So sorry, Chad, because I know Chad was going to ask, Tron, do you have a scholarship? I don't have a Tron scholarship. Not yet, at least, maybe one day. All right, so before I get into the types of award that FAFSA offers, let's start with some very important information. Number one, if you are an upcoming senior, if you're moving into your senior year, you have to wait until when to complete the FAFSA application? Let's just make sure we know that. I want to see some folks put in that in the chat. What's the date that you have to wait to or what's the date that you can start completing your FAFSA application for high school seniors? And it's in a few months. I just gave you some. Okay, Nadira, thank you. October 1st. There we go, Chad, October 1st. So for our seniors, class of 2022, you cannot complete the FAFSA application until October 1st. Thank you, Victoria, October 1st. Now, we know before you start working on your FAFSA, come October 1st, there's something else that you can do, and that is completing the FSA ID. What is the importance of the FSA ID? Well, in order to complete the FAFSA and electronically sign the FAFSA, you have to have an FSA ID. If you are dependent, and let's make sure that we define what dependent means. That means you depend on a parent mother, father, guardian, someone claims you, then they will also need to complete an FSA ID. What is an FSA ID? We're going to go into that in just a second, but to summarize, it's basically going to ask a series of questions and secure all of your information. The government wants to make sure that you are secure. They want to make sure that no one else can access your personal financials, things of that nature. So that's why they have you create an ID so you can identify yourself. So the first thing that you have to do is create an FSA ID. For those of you that are moving into your senior year of high school, great news. You can start on your FSA ID now. You and your parent or guardian can sit down and walk through the FSA ID application or the FSA ID sign up. You guys can do that now. All right. So I'm going to show you a video in a few seconds on how to complete the FSA ID. I just want to make sure that's clear. If we have any students who have recently graduated, congratulations. You can complete your FAFSA application anytime. If you've already done so and maybe you're in your second year of your post-secondary education, meaning you're a sophomore in college, then you need to renew your FAFSA application. A lot of people think once they've done their FAFSA application once, that's it. No, you have to renew it when you're in college. Okay, so again, folks that are becoming a senior, if you're entering your senior year, you can create your FAFSA now, and then come October 1st, you work on your FAFSA application. For those of you who have graduated, hopefully you've already completed your FAFSA and maybe you need help completing, hopefully you've already completed your FSA ID and maybe you need help completing your FAFSA. That's great. You can start that now. And if you're in college, or if you know somebody that's in college, make sure to nudge them and say, hey, the fall semester is coming up. Have you renewed or updated your FAFSA application? Because you need to do that like every year, right? So just make sure to share that with them, okay? Before I get into the FAFSA awards, I'm going to show you a video that explains the FSA ID. So let me pull that up right about now. And as I did before, I'm going to stop periodically through this video and explain certain parts of it so we can understand it in its totality, all right? So here is the first page of the FSA ID. And for those of you that need to work on this here, I'll do you a favor. Here's the link that you need to go to in order to complete the FSA ID. And thank you, Colleen, for spelling that out, fsaid.ed.gov. So I just put the website to the FSA ID page in the chat. So if you need to, you can copy that, but it's fsaid.ed.gov. Anything regarding the financial aid process is going to end in .gov. It will not end in .org or .com. It is a government site, so you want to make sure it ends in .gov. Okay, that's in the chat. Let's get started with this video, and like I said, I'm going to pause every now and then and explain certain parts of it. So here we go. Oh, I already made one mistake. I didn't share my sound. And I've done 1,000 of these Zooms. I should know better. Shame on me. All right, here we go. All right, and already I need to stop. So it says your FSA ID is your personal legal signature. Again, that's what you're going to use to sign the FAFSA application. First bullet point, don't create an FSA ID for anyone else. I think that's common knowledge. You're creating this for you, and then your parents are going to create one for them. All right, the next bullet point, you and only you should create your FSA ID. Well, it kind of mirrors the same point, number one. They're just trying to drive that home. And then the third point, parents should not create an FSA ID for their children and vice versa. Doing so may cause issues with your and your child's financial aid. So you create your own FSA ID, and then your parent or guardian creates their FSA ID. Okay, so I just want to point that out. But the two of you can sit together to create it. You just can't create your own. I just want to throw that out. It's not like you guys got to be in different rooms. All right, so the first page of the FSA ID, all you're doing is creating the username and password for your FSA ID. Now, some people create this and they think, okay, I'm done. I've created my FSA ID. No, this is just the username. This is the login information for your FSA ID page. Okay, so just keep that in mind. There's more to the video. Okay, and then the first screen that you see, as you can see, it talks about the identity. So it's going to go over personal identification information. And as you can see, a social security number is needed in order to complete the FSA ID and therefore to complete the FAFSA application. If you don't have a social security number, the thing that you need to do is contact the Social Security office, or make sure to speak to your parent first to see where you're at in terms of getting or obtaining a social security number. That's step number one. And then your parent will assist you with contacting the Social Security office. But you need a social security number in order to complete the FAFSA application. Okay, one thing to keep in mind, and this is just a common practice, it's not so much necessary on the FAFSA, on the FSA ID, but you want to use the same mailing address. You want to make sure to enter that mailing address word for word as it is. So if you live on the streets, right? If you live on Northwest 10th Street, then you want to make sure that street is ST or STREET, however it shows up on your mail, because the government looks at all of that kind of stuff. They want to make sure that everything mirrors the documentation that you have. Okay, and here, these are challenge questions. Now, some of you are probably wondering, well, why are they asking me to come up with challenge questions? Well, again, this is a part of the security feature that the government has implemented. Again, they want to make sure that no one else can access your personal financials. So they're going to give you two options, question 1 and question 2, where you select your question, and then question 3, 4, and 5, you'll create your own challenge question. So the video will show you this. As a side note, my favorite pizza topping is green peppers. Okay, then very straightforward. You'll review the information, make sure everything's accurate. You'll check that box certifying that certifying the information above is accurate. A lot of people get hung up there and they say, well, why can't I continue? You got to check that box. Okay, and then what they're going to do is verify your phone number. So they're going to send you a code that you have to enter in order to submit and complete the FSA ID. They'll do this via phone, and there's also an option to do this via email. All right, once you receive that code, you enter it, and then you simply submit your FSA ID, and that's it. You're done. You've submitted your FSA ID, okay? I'm just saving you some time from having to see the rest of that video. Now, here's something I want to make clear before I go to the chat. I see the chat's been kind of blowing up. So once you've created your FSA ID, make sure that you archive that information somewhere, whether it's in your phone. Hopefully you find a spot that you can save it on your desktop. whether it's someplace in the cloud, if it's on a piece of paper that you save in a file cabinet. Yes, people still use file cabinets. I do. And I put a lot of my personal information in the file cabinet. But make sure to save that stuff, because what happens is your mother or father or parent or guardian, they'll say, you know what, I have a sister, I have a daughter or a son, and I've done this with them, but I don't remember where it is. So make sure you prevent that from happening. Tell mom and dad to save it somewhere. Tell your parent or guardian to save that information somewhere, okay? And the same goes for you, all right? Let me look at the chat and see what kind of questions we have before I move on any further. All right, so let's see here. So bottom line, 2 FSA IDs are needed. Okay, great. Save your password. First name, thank you very much, Colleen. Okay, so Chad says, just to confirm, you cannot complete the FAFSA without an FSA ID. That is correct. It is impossible to complete your FAFSA application without creating your FSA ID, one for you and one for your parent or guardian if you are dependent. If you're independent, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna know, because you're making, I believe it's over, don't quote me on this, I think it's 20%, 25% of your income, and maybe a little bit more than that. Or you are what they call a homeless youth, or what's the other term? What is the other term? There's another term and I can't think of it, I apologize. Displaced youth, it's something like that. The exact name slips me. But if you're in one of those programs, and obviously you'll know, but if you're dependent, then again, you're going to need mother and father, parent or guardian to complete the FSA ID. Okay. All right. And so Colleen, you answered that, correct? Hello, Tron, this is noted for the next pizza day. Yes, I love green peppers. Okay. So Chad says, my mom said she filled out everything. Could she have filled out my FAFSA? Is about. So again, the student needs to complete their own FAFSA their own FSA ID. Technically, your parent could act like you and complete your FSA ID. But what I suggest to students all the time is to have you and your parent or guardian sit down and go through the FSA ID together. Except when it's your time, student, to complete the FSA ID, you're the one behind the controls. When it's the parent or guardian's time, they're the one behind the controls. But it is not recommended that the parent do one for the student and vice versa. It's not recommended, and that's by the government, okay? All right. I don't see any other questions, so I'm going to move on with the presentation. Thank you very much for your questions. So once you complete the FSA ID, it's now time to complete the FAFSA. Well, what I want you to know is this: if you are if you have graduated from high school, your class of 21, and you need help completing the FAFSA, I've got great news for you. Broward College is running a FAFSA lab every Friday until August 6th. And it's from 2:30 to 4 p.m. If you need help completing your FAFSA, again, this is for the students who have graduated from high school, you can visit the Broward College FAFSA application lab every Friday. And I'm going to put this in the chat right now. So it's in the chat. You can click on that link and sign up for an upcoming FAFSA lab. Again, this is for students who have graduated and are moving into college or preparing to move into college. Our FAFSA, our financial aid advisors will help you complete the FAFSA application, okay? So you can sign up there in order to walk through the FAFSA application. Now, you've walked through the FAFSA application, right? And you're saying to yourself, well, what was the point of me doing all of this? Well, you complete the FAFSA for one reason, to find out how much money the government is going to give you for school. And the FAFSA is broken into 4 separate award types. So we'll look at scholarships later on in our presentation. I'll talk about work study in a little bit, but then there's grants and student loans, okay? So what are grants and student loans? And I've posed this question before. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. And I believe Nadira, if I'm not mistaken, she was the one that answered this last Friday, but who can tell me the difference between a grant and a loan? I just need somebody to come off mute really quick and tell me the difference between a grant and a loan. Somebody not named Nadira or Chad. The only reason I get to say that is because I'm the one conducting the presentation. So who else can tell me what's the difference between a grant and a loan? Any takers?
A grant is when someone pays you forward and you get to keep the money with no strings attached. With a loan, there is strings attached where there's interest rate and you have to pay it back to the person that you borrowed it from.
Okay, Victoria, I must have emailed you my script for the night because you hit the nail on the head. Thank you so much, Victoria. And Victoria, I think I've asked you this before. What school do you attend?
Hollandale High School.
Hollandale Beach High School, home of the
Chargers.
Chargers. That's it. All right. Thank you, Victoria. I had a 37-year-old brain fart there. So yes, you're absolutely correct. A grant is money that is given to you. There is one string attached. There's one string attached. Let me tweak that just some. The string that's attached is this. If you are receiving a grant from the government, you have a responsibility to the government. They've given you that money in trust, in faith rather. And they're saying to themselves, we see that you need this money. We want to make sure you get the money. We want to make sure you earn your college degree. However, you have to pass your classes. If you do not pass your classes, right, and you're placed on academic probation, and you don't take yourself out of academic probation, meaning you get higher grades, you fail all those courses, then the government's going to come back and say, hey, we gave you this money in faith. You didn't live up to it. Now, guess what you have to do? You have to give it back to us. That's right. You got to give all that grant money back to the government. So make sure, for those of you that are receiving Pell Grants, and I'll show you if you're going to receive a Pell Grant, I'll show you that in a second. Make sure that you pass all of your classes so that you don't have to give that money back. However, going back to Victoria's earlier point, yes, a grant is somebody granting you access to those funds. You don't have to pay that back. A loan, Victoria said it, is where you pay the government back plus interest. And it doesn't matter if it's a personal loan, it doesn't matter if it's a home loan, car loan, it doesn't matter. You have to pay it back plus interest. So that's the difference between a grant and a loan. So the FAFSA application is going to determine whether or not you receive a grant or loan, but also the FAFSA application is going to let you know if you're eligible for work study. And in certain cases, scholarships require that you have a FAFSA application on file. Now that basically pertains to seniors, because obviously if you're a freshman, then they're not going to ask you for that. But seniors, you'll need to make sure that you have a FAFSA application on file before you can apply to some scholarships, which is why it is so important. It is imperative. It's paramount that you complete the FAFSA application as soon as you can come October 1st, all right? So I kind of gave away my next screen, but I want to talk about the work study role and what that means. And better than me sit here and talk about it, I'm going to show you a quick video, just a few pieces, just a few seconds of this video, and then I'll explain the work study position.
Money while you're in school to Want to earn money while you're in school to help cover tuition and expenses? Work Study can help. Work study jobs are usually on campus and may give you experience related to your major. For example, English majors could work in the writing center, or chemistry majors could work in a science lab. Work study jobs are also available in a school's libraries, cafeterias, student unions, cafes, and just about anywhere on campus. Because they are part-time and offer flexible hours, work study jobs give you time to focus on schoolwork. They're available to full or part-time undergraduate, graduate, and professional students. Getting a work-study job starts with the free application for Federal Student Aid, or FAFSA, which determines your eligibility for financial aid. The only way to apply for work study is to check the box saying you're interested in work study on the FAFSA. Be sure to complete your...
Make note of that. Students, I want you to make note of that, especially the ones that are about to be seniors in a few weeks. When you're completing the FAFSA application, there is a portion on the FAFSA application that asks, would you like to be eligible for work study? Check that box. Just remember the term work study. Check the box. If you want to make some money, extra money while you're on campus, okay, then, and the rest of this video basically goes into the FAFSA application. So let me go back to the presentation, all right? So what's a work study exactly? Well, they talked about it. They said these are students who can work at a cafe, a library, but guess what? Work study positions are available everywhere. I mentioned this last Friday. Recently, I hired, over the last year, I hired about 25 work studies. Work studies pay $10 an hour, and you can work up to 25 hours a week. And here's the beauty about work study. There's two things that are just phenomenal about work study positions. Number one, it's a different budget than your grant or loan. So it's not tied to the grant, it's not tied to the loan, it's separate funding. So you have a work study budget and then you have a grant budget. All right, so those are separate funds. Number two, it's a work study position. So any employee at the college that you work for understands that you are a student first. And that's why they limit you to 25 hours a week. And if there's ever a time that you need to change your schedule or that you need to prepare for an exam, whatever the case is, 9 times out of 10, that employee is going to be more than willing to readjust your schedule. In my case, my work studies kind of work as they need to. They have their tasks. As long as those tasks are completed by the end of the week, we're good. Okay, so that's the beauty of a work study position. Let me answer this question before somebody asks it. Can you have a grant and have a work study position? Absolutely, you can. Remember, they're 2 separate budgets. Can you have scholarships and work as a work study student? Absolutely, 2 different funding sources. All right, so that's why another reason why you want to complete the FAFSA. And as I mentioned before, scholarships. All right, so I've talked a little bit about the awards for FAFSA. Let me get into the myths, and then I see the chat's been kind of blowing up a little bit, so I'll go to the chat right after this. Financial aid myths. Your parent, and I'm going to start at the bottom left and work my way up to the top right. So bottom left, your parents are not supporting you financially in college, so you don't have to include their information on the FAFSA. Nope, that is a myth. You need to include their information on the FAFSA. Why? Because they're going to use that as a part of their evaluation process. They need to know how much your parents make. They need to put that into consideration. And they also need to know the number of siblings that you have. So the number of children they have, that's another factor. So there's several factors, but yes, if you are dependent, you depend on mom, dad, parent, guardian, then we're gonna need, or the government's gonna need their financial aid information. All right, next one. You only need to complete the FAFSA once. Well, we already talked about this. You need to renew or update your FAFSA at least once a year when you're in college. Usually it's once a year. So you don't just do the FAFSA once and you're done. Nope, it's not a one and done. You have to renew every year. All right. The next one to the right of that, you need to have your taxes filed before starting the FAFSA application. That is not true. The FAFSA application looks at your tax information that was filed a year ago. So for students that completed the FAFSA this year, they were looking at tax information from 2019, okay? So if you have not worked the job, then guess what? You have no taxes to file. So this really applies to your parents. If you were working and you started this year, guess what? You don't have to worry about including that on the FAFSA application. Now, the following year, yes, you'll have to include what you did this year, but this year, you don't have to worry about that, okay? The FAFSA application is too difficult to complete. Nothing's that difficult in life. We make things difficult by not preparing, by not being organized, and key thing, by not reading. If you just simply read step by step through the FAFSA application, you'll have all the answers you need. And as a matter of fact, on the FAFSA application, in many of the areas, there's a help button. You just click help and it'll give you more information, all right? And then the top right, you won't receive financial aid because of how much money your parents earn. Well, that's a small factor in terms of how much the government's going to give you. But remember, you have 2 types of funding sources, grants and loans. So what may happen is if your parents make too much money, you may not get a grant, but 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a loan. Of course, the government wants to get you a loan because they get to charge you, like Victoria said, they get to charge you interest. So of course they're going to give you a loan, but that is not necessarily true. You won't receive financial aid because of how much your parents make. There's a couple other factors that are involved in that process, in that evaluation process. And I mentioned one of them, the number of siblings in the house. That also matters, okay? All right, I see that there's another chat that's been posted. Let's see, let me go up here and see what we got here. Scholarships, FAFSA application, okay, thank you, Colleen. And then let's see, Victoria asked a question, how much money do you have to make to be eligible to file taxes? How much money do you have to make to be eligible to file taxes? That's a great question. I don't know if there's a certain amount that you have to make. If you are being paid by a company and they're providing you with W-4s and you're taking taxes out of your check, then I believe you're going to be taxed. And I'm sorry, then I believe you have to file taxes. It could be $1,000, $2,000. I'm not exactly sure, but I believe if they're taking taxes out, then you have to file taxes. That's the key thing. I may need to come back to that to further explain, but that's how it works in my opinion. Chad, does the loan get affected because how much your parents make? So the loan amount may be affected by how much they owe, not how much they make, but how much they owe in other loans. So if your parents owe a lot already in loans, right? Let's say mom or dad has $500,000 worth of loans, and this is excluding a house. Then the government may say, well, wait a minute. If we give you this loan money, how do we know you or your parent or guardian is going to be able to pay it back? So in that case, they may reduce the amount of loan money that you receive. But keep this in mind. The goal for you is to earn scholarships. We want to stay away from loans. All right, and Colleen answered Victoria's question. The minimum income amount depends on your filing status and age. So in 2020, for example, the minimum for single filing status, if under the age of 65, is $12,000. If your income is below that threshold, you generally do not need to file a federal tax return. Review the full list below for other filing statuses and ages. Thank you so much, Colleen. Greatly appreciate that. Victoria, I hope that answers your question. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next page. And as I did before, and I think right around the same time I said this, make sure to take a picture of this. These are FAFSA common challenges. So take your phones out. I'll give you a few seconds. Take a picture, take a screenshot, but take this because it talks about who's my parent when filling up the FAFSA. These are common challenges and questions that students run across, and it would take a little bit more time to dive into this and probably a financial aid subject matter expert to cover these. But I want to make sure that you see these challenges. And by the way, this information is provided by our Federal Student Aid Office. So this is government information. So take a screenshot, take a picture. I'll give you 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, 2 more seconds. Okay, moving on to the next screen. So you've completed your FAFSA application. Congratulations. Now what? What happens next? A lot of students think when they complete their FAFSA application, that means they're going to start receiving the funds. But you don't receive funds until you register for a class. That's your way of showing your interest in going to school. That's your way of showing your intention, rather, of going to school. So the government doesn't know how much to award you or when to award you, rather, until you register for class. But before that, you can actually find out how much you're going to receive or what you're quote unquote eligible for. So as soon as you complete your FAFSA application, as soon as you and your parent or guardian signs the FAFSA application electronically, you receive an email, and the email looks something like this. It says, congratulations, Julia. It says, your year FAFSA was completed, gives you next steps. I'm just going to focus on the arrows that I have listed here. So the first arrow talks about the estimated expected family contribution, also known as the EFC. The EFC measures how much you can contribute to the cost of your education. Schools use your EFC to determine your federal student aid eligibility. Now, here's what's key to know about this. If your EFC shows all zeros, chances are you're going to get a Pell Grant, because that means the government feels like your family cannot contribute anything to your education. All right. If you start seeing some numbers there, the more numbers you see, that basically means the more your family can contribute, and that will adjust the amount of Pell Grant that you receive, and even the loan that you receive. Okay. The EFC is not how much you made, or I'm sorry, the EFC is not how much aid you will receive or how much you have to pay for college. All right. That's not what it is. It measures how much you can contribute to the cost of your education. Okay. Now, another thing that students don't really know is once you receive your confirmation email, it tells you whether or not you're eligible for a grant or a loan, and it'll give you the amount that you're eligible for. So in this case, Julia, this is a made-up person, by the way, is eligible for $4,000, $4,100 in Pell Grant. Julia is also eligible for a loan of $4,700. So as soon as you complete that FAFSA application, the government's going to let you know, here's what you're eligible for. Now, just imagine in between the second to last arrow and the last arrow, there's another process. That process is an internal process that the government pursues, and they do some background checks on you. They look into the information that you provided. There may be a chance in certain cases that you're selected for verification, meaning you have to verify the information that you've listed, and that's a separate process, but it's one that really, again, if you're just reading and following along, you can do. Okay, so once that process is taken care of, then you move on to register for classes. The last arrow says you may be eligible to receive other federal, state, or institutional grants, scholarship, and/or, here's that key word again, work study. Okay, so it says you may be eligible. All right, so when you complete your FAFSA application come October 1st, just remember my FAFSA confirmation email. I should be getting that. Tron said I'm going to get it as soon as I sign. Let me check my email and look at it, and then you can determine what you're eligible for. Okay. That's the FAFSA application. That's the FAFSA process, FSA ID, financial aid, all of the above. But there are other ways of saving money for college and saving money before you go to college. One of those ways is dual enrollment. So before I go any further, I just want to pause and ask, is anyone on the line in dual enrollment? Have you taken dual enrollment courses? If you have, just say yes in the chat. If anyone's taken any dual enrollment courses, just put a yes in the chat. Okay, Nadira says yes. Chad says, I wish I did, but Chad is a senior, so he'll be taking some this year. Guarantee that. Who else? Who else has taken dual enrollment courses? I only see one so far. Anyone else? Anyone else? No, nobody else? Okay. All right. Well, Nadira, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor because, again, I've done a lot of talking and I want to make sure everybody hears some peers. Nadira, if you don't mind, please tell us about your dual enrollment experience. What were the courses like? What did you take? What was the process in terms of setting up, signing up for dual enrollment? If you don't mind, Nadira.
So essentially, dual enrollment is basically taking a college class in high school. My first dual enrollment class was ENC 1101. And my professor was pretty nice. I actually took it at Broward College, the South Campus. Of course, it was online because it was during COVID. But I'd say that my experience was pretty pleasant. He got back to emails pretty quickly. Overall, there wasn't too much work involved. I actually wish I had taken more. And I actually passed with a good grade. I was like 0.1 off from an A. So I would suggest harass your guidance counselors for information because it's a really good program.
There we go. And Nadira, before I go back to my PowerPoint, thank you so much for coming off mute. Nadira, before I go back to my PowerPoint, let me ask you another question. How much did dual enrollment cost you?
It was probably $500 for one class.
Okay. So in most cases, dual enrollment is free. So were you taking dual enrollment courses through Broward College?
Yes, it is dual enrollment, but if I were to have paid for it, it was around like $500 or $600, which that just amazed me.
There we go. There we go. So dual enrollment is free. If you're paying for dual enrollment, then you're probably not in the dual enrollment program, but dual enrollment is free. Here's a definition of dual enrollment, but I want to move on to the next slide in the interest of time. And it talks about the eligibility requirements. So students that are on, if you haven't taken the dual enrollment course, if you don't know the eligibility requirements, I humbly beg you to take a picture of this, take a screenshot. Everyone that's on, make sure to take a picture of this and share it with your peers. Here's the eligibility requirements. You need a minimum unweighted high school GPA of a 3.0. Unweighted, we know the difference between weighted and unweighted. I'm pretty sure we do. Unweighted takes the core classes that you take that you're taking, right? Weighted includes all of the honors, includes the electives. Unweighted is just the core. So a minimum unweighted high school GPA of 3.0. You have to take one of three exams, ACT, SAT, or the PERT exam, which is known as the college placement exam. So it'll look at the level of your test scores there. And then you need permission from your parent, school counselor, and principal. And we'll go into that in a second. All right. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I'm just going to give you an opportunity to take a picture of the test scores. This is for our placement exam, this is our placement exam. So we have the SAT in the top row, ACT second row, PERT in the third. All right, so take a picture of these. I'll give you a couple seconds to do that. Take a screenshot, take a picture. Come on, I see somebody fumbling with their phone. There we go, get it right, get it right. Great, you took the picture. Moving on. And by the way, this information, if you guys go to Broward College, or if you just Google Broward College dual enrollment, you can see the majority of this information on the website. All right, so dual enrollment, limited to 11 credits per term, all right, or you can say per semester. So 11 credits, that's about 3 classes. That's a little less than 3 classes. You can be in any grade in high school, and I'll talk about that. Does not require to enroll in consecutive terms, meaning you can take dual enrollment in your freshman year, and then you can wait until your junior year to do that. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can. And then take courses at college while still attending high school. And then this goes on to explain early admissions, which is a different conversation. So we'll hold off on that for now. Here's some stuff about dual enrollment that students may or may not know. You can transfer to any public college or university. You're taking dual enrollment courses, that means you're probably at a public institution. They count towards the beginning of your college transcripts. Absolutely, those credits are college credits. May not be repeated while still enrolled in the dual enrollment program. So if you fail a dual enrollment course, that's it. If you withdraw from a dual enrollment course, that's it. You can't take it again. And the key thing here, those courses are free. The application and tuition fees are waived. Why wouldn't you want to start taking dual enrollment courses while you're in high school? That's one way for you to save money in college, save money for college. Okay. All right. How do you get started? So this goes back to the eligibility requirements where it said you need permission from your parent, guidance counselor, and principal. You meet with your guidance counselor. Nadira said it. Go bug your guidance counselor, especially when school starts. They're the ones who are going to give you the dual enrollment recommendation form. Then you need to apply to Broward College online if you're taking dual enrollment through BC, and there are some other schools that you can take dual enrollment through. Take the PERT test. If needed, you can also take the ACT or SAT. Work with your guidance counselor to complete the course selection process. They'll help you choose the courses that you should take and that you want to take. And then submit your dual enrollment recommendation form to your guidance counselor, which will then be signed by your guidance counselor and principal. Each school, each high school has different dual enrollment deadline dates. That's why it is so important to talk to your guidance counselor, all right? Dual enrollment, and we're just gonna focus on the first sentence here. Students may take a total of 2 dual enrollment courses per semester, one of which may be at BC, FAU, UF, or any combination of those schools for a maximum total of 4 courses during the school year. There was a time, once upon a time, where you could take dual enrollment courses and earn an associate's degree. Well, because of some budget cuts, Broward County has kind of cut back from that, but you can take dual enrollment courses at different schools, at different universities and colleges. It all depends on the contract that your high school has with that university or college. Who has the answer to that? Your guidance counselor. Yep, someone said it, I heard it. All right, and then this kind of talks about dual enrollment for the 12th grade. One thing about dual enrollment is this: when you're a freshman, you probably haven't taken the SAT, the ACT, or the college placement exam. And in order to sign up for dual enrollment, remember, you need a 3.0 unweighted GPA. So when you go to your guidance counselor, your first day in class as a freshman, they're going to tell you this. First thing you need to do is establish your GPA. The second thing you need to do is take one of those 3 exams. So in most cases, freshmen start dual enrollment in the spring semester. That would be January. So if we have any freshmen on here, then you'll probably have to start in the spring semester. If you're a sophomore, you can take the SAT, ACT, or college placement exam during the summer, okay? All right, and then there are some testing options for taking it at Broward College. You can also visit our Broward College testing webpage for more information, all right? Okay, let's talk about some scholarships and other ways of saving money. Some of you have probably seen this a few times by now, but how much money goes unclaimed every year? And this is regarding high school graduates. $2.6 billion in free money for college goes unclaimed. And that's according to NerdWallet. This is a company that conducts surveys and evaluations on how much money is spent and claimed by students. This money went unclaimed by 661 members of the class of 2018. Class of 2022, we can't let this happen. That's too much money left behind on the table, all right? Let me show you a video, and I showed this to you if you were here last Friday, but I'm gonna play this again. I want everyone to pay attention to this. Check this out.
For the taking that no one seemed to be taking. NerdWallet says in 2014, $2.9 billion in free federal grants was left on the table. Not to mention all of the untapped private scholarship cash out there that nobody accesses. Here's how you get it.
Think about what makes you unique and what do you bring to the table and what's unique about your story or your backstory, and write those things down. And those are the things that you search for when it comes to scholarships.
So I did it. I came up with a few things off the top of my head about my daughter. She's deaf in one ear. Well, there's scholarship offers for children who are deaf, also for children who are born with hemangiomas. Now, she also had a hemangioma that caused deafness. There's a scholarship for that too. So outside of academics or sports, there are other ways, a lot of ways that you can get money for college.
And there were scholarships for the left-handed student or the minority student or the female student in STEM or the student who was a victim of, their parent was a victim of homicide, or if their parent was a veteran, or if their parent was a cancer survivor.
Here's a scholarship for aggressive scholarship applicants. The person who applies for the most scholarships can win money for school.
The person who applies for scholarships can win money. You know, that sounds very familiar to something that we're doing here in Bridge to Life. Yeah, that's right. We want students to apply for scholarships. We want students to be active. So all that scholarship is saying is the more active you are, the better your chances are of winning some money, of earning some money. So we have companies out there that are giving you money. Now, I kind of prep Chad for this. We have a student on with us who is well-versed in scholarships and has a very unique scholarship. Let me see, hang on. Oh, I just submitted my Google form today. Way to go, Nadira, awesome. And who has a very special scholarship club that I'm gonna let him talk about in 2 seconds. Before I do that, I wanna cover institutional aid, and I mentioned this last Friday, but a lot of students earn scholarships and grants. They earn grants rather from universities and colleges. And they look at that and say, look, I just got $20,000 from Lockwood University. Well, here's the thing. Lockwood University isn't giving you $20,000. What they're doing is they're discounting your tuition. So over the course of time, they're gonna say, they're gonna apply $5,000 to your freshman year, $5,000 to your sophomore year, $5,000 to your junior year, and $5,000 to your senior year. All right, when colleges and universities do this, they're not giving you the money, they're just reducing the cost of tuition at their school. Now, that's great. That's less money out of your pocket. So please pursue institutional aid. Please pursue institutional awards. As a matter of fact, Broward College has an award, and it's the Broward Futures Scholarship. As you can see, this covers the cost of tuition and additional fees up to 30 credit hours and contributes towards the cost of books and supplies for each academic year. So 30 credit hours, we know that it takes 60 credits to earn your associates and 120 credits in most cases to earn your bachelor's. So basically what the Broward Futures Award is doing is paying for your associate's degree, your first 2 years in school. But again, we're taking on that cost as a college. We're not giving you that money, we're discounting it, we're reducing your cost of tuition, okay? So let's move on from institutional awards. How much money can you earn in scholarships? You can earn as much as you want. There's a video that I showed last week. Let me check the time really quick. Okay, we got about 10 minutes before I need to start wrapping it up. But I think everybody's enjoying this information. So let me just show you really quickly. I'm gonna show you 1 minute of this video, okay? Where are you, video? Here you are. Okay, I'm gonna show you 1 minute of this video, and then I'm gonna ask Chad Jordan to talk about his special club, his special group of peers that he's working with. So give me 1 second, 1 minute, and then we'll hear from Chad.
Memorable moments today at Miami Central High School. It was academic signing day.
And among those in the spotlight were twins from Nigeria. CBS 4's Carly Barnett has their story. feel like today is a day for me to be grateful and also to thank those people who have made me, come this far.
It's academic signing day at Miami Central High School, a day to recognize seniors who have been accepted to college on some serious scholarships.
I watch the news, I watch about people who get scholarships, and I can never believe I would get this far too. So it was just, an inspiration to me and a driving force to always pursue my dreams.
Twins, Khalida and Khalid Gawan, are among those recognized.
We moved to Nigeria when I was a little kid, and I spent most of my years in Nigeria. And then I came here at age 14. First, when I came, it was a little bit hard to assimilate because I wasn't used to the culture and everything.
And they're only 16 years old. They both want to enter the healthcare industry. Khalid wants to be a pharmacist, and Khalida an OBGYN. Khalid and his 4.0 average earned him more than $360,000 in scholarships, and his sister's 4.4 average more than $1 million.
We have 2 students.
Okay, I want to make sure everybody heard that. They earned more than $1 million. So now some of that I'm sure is institutional aid, and now we understand the difference. Institutional aid is money that is being that the college is using to reduce your tuition. But I'm sure some of that other money is money that's going directly to them, right? So we're about to get into the part where we talk about where to find this money. How do you find scholarships? Chad Jordan, are you there?
Yep. Hold on a second. All right. Yep.
There we go. Chad, how are you? Happy Friday, man.
Friday. Hello, everybody.
All right, Chad, do me a favor. We're going to start talking about how to find scholarships. We have a couple minutes left. I want you to talk to your peers about something that you put together, and I commend Chad for this because he saw a need and he addressed that need, and he didn't wait on anybody. He said, no, you know what? I'm just going to do this on my own. So Chad, do me a favor, talk about your club.
All right. So I do have to update you. All right. So my club ran the last school year, and I just had a group of students, and I worked with them bi-weekly, and I showed them different platforms that they could apply for scholarships on. But now, over this summer, I've been planning something a little bit bigger over the summer, and it's not just pertaining to scholarships, but that's I'll explain more if you keep coming to the B2L meeting.
That's fine, Chad. That's fine. That's great, and I can't wait to learn more about it. But just give students an idea of what your scholarship club was about, because maybe Nadira or Victoria or Taylor or Alyssa, or you never know, they may want to start their own scholarship club or scholarship coalition. I'm just throwing it out there. Chad.
All right. So yeah, basically, I had my students, and I told them you could apply for scholarships on Scholarship Owl. You can go to Naviance, where there's a whole bunch of unapplied for scholarships that are just sitting there waiting in a long list. I told them to go to Miss Shedley. Hopefully you all know the scholarship plug herself. I told them to go to her, and I checked up on them and made sure they were applying for at least, and I urged them to apply for at least 3 scholarships a week, at least, or at the very least. That's because applying for these scholarships is really important, and you might not get all of the scholarships that you want. You might not get money on the first 3 scholarships you apply for. It takes repetition and it takes perseverance. So that's the one other key thing about scholarships. It's something you just have to keep doing, and you're gonna see that you're getting money out of it. It's not something that comes quick. It takes time. What else can I say about scholarships?
And Chad, if I can jump in really quick, what was the name of your scholarship consortium?
My club. I think I heard. I just remember it being called my scholarship club. Club.
Yeah,
I just called it scholarship club.
So, and why did you feel the need to create this club?
I felt the need to because I felt like there was a lot of students who were just so worried about it. They're just like, oh my gosh, college is nice, but it's so expensive. There's such a heavy price tag, and it's just I know there's bright futures, but maybe I feel like I don't feel like I apply for bright futures. So I just want to give them that other way that there's hope. There's millions of applications out there of hope for you. So that's kind of why I wanted to start it. It's one reason why I wanted to start the club, just to give students that knowledge of how they can pay that heavy price tag.
And we salute Chad because this was a brain source that came from him, an idea that came from him, and he ran with it and got peers involved. And it wasn't easy. I'm pretty sure it was an easy thing to get off the ground and then continue to run, but Chad did it. So Chad, thank you very much for your service. Thank you for your work. We greatly appreciate it, and we can't wait to hear the big idea that you're working on. I'm sure it's a whopper. So we can't wait to hear about it. So students, this goes back to you. You can create these clubs at your schools, at your high schools. Feel free to do so. Chad is a perfect example. And if you're working on something like that now, feel free to talk to me, Colleen, your brace advisors, your teachers, whoever you need to for guidance. Before I go into where to find scholarships, I want to pause again and give others an opportunity to speak. If you have applied for scholarships, and if you have a place where we can find scholarships, let's just take a few minutes out right now to share that. Now, yes, I have some locations that I'm going to give you. I have some channels that I'm going to give you, and I have a really cool image for everybody on the line with us today. But if you've applied for scholarships, or if you know where students can find scholarships, I'm going to give you two options. You can put it in the chat, or you can come off mute and just tell us, where did you find your scholarships? So I'm giving maybe a minute or two to do that now. If you know where to find scholarships, you know some really good scholarship websites, or if you want to tell us off mute, where did you apply? How many scholarships you apply for? How many have you earned? How many are you working towards? Feel free to do that. And I'll give you about 60 seconds because I want to make sure that we get through on time, or at least somewhat close to on time. But let's see, does anyone have any scholarship sites or locations before I put some on the screen? Yes.
I went to FastWeb. I signed up for a lot of the scholarship that's on that site, but I haven't heard back from them yet because I've done it from last month and this month so far.
So FastWeb, everyone. Fast like you run fast, web like a spider web. FastWeb is a site to go to. I see Chad is just dropping knowledge in the chat. Scholarship Owl, Going Mary. Is that JLV Counseling scholarship site? Wow, I've never even heard of that one. So these are other scholarship sites that you can visit. These are good ones in my opinion. Thank you, Chad. Hey, I trust your opinion. So for students out there who have not applied to scholarships, I promise you, just like the financial aid myths that said, is it difficult? No, it's not difficult. Chad said it perfectly. It just takes a little bit of persistence. It just takes a little bit of repetition, commitment. That's all. You have to be committed to it. Okay. So let me share my screen. Thank you so much, Chad. Very inspirational. Thank you, Nadira. So I'm going to share my screen, go back to the PowerPoint, and we'll wrap up very soon. Just give me another couple minutes, and then I'll let you go for your Friday, your weekend excursions. Okay. So here are some additional scholarship sites you can go to find scholarships. All right. So capex.com, unigo.com, and then Chad also put this in the chat, Naviance. And I talked about this last Friday. For those of you that attend a public school here in Broward County, you have access to Naviance. It is a hidden gem. I'm not going to go through the long story, but long story short, there was a young lady who graduated a couple of years ago that earned about $70,000. She waited to her senior year, applied for 50 to 60 scholarships. Some of the scholarships she received because she was the only one who applied, which is just mind-blowing in my opinion. But she used Naviance and only Naviance to apply to those scholarships. So you guys have access to Naviance. It's there. It's at your disposal. Use it when you can, okay? Let's think outside of the box. Here is a scholarship periodic table. This is not mine. This comes from a company called Scholarship Experts. But I want you to look at it, and let's start from left to right. Scholarship types, scholarships by type. Well, believe it or not, there are unusual and weird scholarships, company-sponsored scholarships, homeschool, government, merit-based, right? But then there's scholarships by demographic. If you look down at the bottom, let me go to my annotation. I should have annotation here somewhere. Do I? I don't. That's interesting, because then I could draw on the screen, but I don't have annotation. All right, anyway, so scholarships by demographics, right? So whether you're moms for women, need-based, religious, There's scholarship by year and grade, of course, scholarships for freshmen. There's minority scholarships, obviously. In the center, you see scholarship by major. This is a big one. Everybody looks for scholarships based on what they want to study. There's athletic scholarships, and then there's scholarship experts. So I have a dream, superpower, do-over, flavor of the month, all of these unique scholarships. These are awards. These awards are unique scholarship opportunities offered and funded exclusively by scholarshipexperts.com. All right, so you can go to this website. It's a trusted website. Anytime a website asks you for money, if you go to a website or if you apply for a scholarship and they ask you for money for that scholarship, run. Don't do it. It's not what you want, okay? All right, and then a few other things, and I'm gonna close. When you think about scholarships, think about the brands that you use. I'm not gonna spend much time going here. You get the idea. Pizza Hut, Burger King, Domino's, Penn Dutch, Sonics, right? Think about the clothes, the other brands that you go to, Bed Bath Beyond, Pottery Barn, Crate and Barrel. Think about DKNY, Gucci, Louis, Topshop. Think about the sodas that you drink, the cereals that you eat, right? Just simply Google it. I want a few of you to do this, and I asked students to do this the last time, and it worked, but I want a few of you to take a minute or two to search for scholarships based on any brand. It can be the cell phone that you have. It can be the brand of the TV that you have, Xbox, PS4. Type the name of that brand followed by scholarships for students and tell me what you come up with. And while you're doing that, I'm going to show you, because I already kind of did it. But let me show you this, what I found. Let's see here. We're going to minimize that. So I did a scholarship search just to make sure I wasn't telling you guys a lie. Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper tuition giveaway. Dr. Pepper is awarding over $1 million in tuition to help students reach their biggest goals. Dr. Pepper. So I'm telling you, if you just type in a brand name and scholarships, or brand name and scholarships for students, 9 times out of 10, it's going to show up. All right, it's going to appear. All right. So let me leave you with this. And I gave you guys this tip last Friday. I'm going to give you the same tip, and then we'll close out. I'll open the floor to Q&A. But let me leave you with this. For scholarship essays, and I know many students hear the word essay and they cringe, but there's a stat that goes something like this. Students between the age of 13 to 21 or 19, you guys are texting 50,000 words a day. So a 500-word scholarship application shouldn't be much for you to write. All right, so there's 3 ways. There's one tip regarding scholarship essays and how to prepare for them. Here's a tip. Write 3 essays. The first essay needs to cover your career goals. So what kind of career industry do you want to land? Do you want to become a doctor? Do you want, what's your career industry? All right, talk about why you want to pursue that career. The second scholarship needs to be a biography. Tell us about yourself. Give us a story, the highs and lows, whatever you're willing to share, of course, but talk about, things that you've experienced in life. What brought you to this place in life, right? And where do you want to go from there? The third essay, make this one about your dreams and aspirations. So, if you want to cure the world of the common cold, you want to eradicate homelessness, whatever it is, you want to be the next American Idol, right? Whatever your dreams and aspirations are. So again, the first one, it's the first scholarship, make that career focused. The second scholarship, make that personal. So talk about who you are, your biography. The third scholarship essay, make that one about dreams and aspirations. Each of those essays need to be 500 words each. Now, the question is why? Why writing those essays? Well, typically speaking, most scholarship applications, if they require an essay, the essay is going to align with one of those 3 questions. And if you already have the essays written, right, if you've already addressed those answers, then going back to what Chad said, it's just a matter of rinse and repeat. You change a little bit of verbiage, right? You update the topic of the scholarship. You make sure that you're clearly answering the question, and you submit the essay. That way you're not sitting down writing essay after essay, right? So just get it out the way now, write those 3 essays. It'll help you in the long run. I promise you, it will help you in the long run, okay? That is the presentation for this evening. Do we have any questions? Unmute, drop them in the chat. The floor is yours. Somebody cue the Jeopardy music. I hear it in the background. Da, da, da. Any questions? There's no way I covered that much information and no one has not one single question. That means I did a really good job or I lost y'all somewhere along the way.
Did you talk about in-state and out-of-state tuition?
I did not. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. So when you attend college, if you stay in state, thank you, Victoria. If you stay in state, right? Let's say you go to UF, Broward College, FIU. If you're in state, you're going to pay what's called the in-state tuition rate. The in-state tuition rate is much lower than out of state. It's almost like a reward system. It's like saying the college's way of saying thank you for keeping the money in-house in the state. If you venture off to Nevada University or Las Vegas University, you're probably going to pay an out-of-state tuition rate. Why is that? Well, because that state says to themselves, hang on a second, you're coming here. We want to keep these seats open to our residents of Nevada, but here you come. So you know what? We're going to charge you a little bit extra because you could have stayed in Florida. But since you're coming here, we're going to up that tuition rate a little bit. So to give you an example, the in-state tuition rate at Broward College is $300 per class, right? It's like $353 if we're being technical per class. The out-of-state tuition rate is triple that. It's basically triple that. So for students that come from Nevada or New York and come to Broward College, they're paying triple the tuition rate. So it's always a good decision to try to find a school that has a program you want in-state so you can pay the lower tuition rate. That's the difference between in-state tuition and out-of-state tuition. Thank you, Victoria. Okay, any other questions? I see we got some comments. All right. Well, I thank you all very much for your time. Thank you for showing up. We're going to go into some more information next week about this. And I have some other topics to bring up regarding saving money for college. So I'm always going to throw a little bit something new in the mix during each presentation. But thank you guys so much for showing up. It's Friday. Thank you, Colleen. We have LinkedIn training on Monday. You want to check this out because we have our buddy Glenn Benjamin from Land Infotech. He's going to be there. And he's a whiz when it comes to LinkedIn. So for those of you that need some additional training on LinkedIn, make sure to check that out on Monday. Thank you, Victoria. I greatly appreciate it. And then on Tuesday, we have adulting and financial literacy with the market president of Comerica Bank. This is another opportunity to connect. So make sure you guys come out on Tuesday. And yes, Colleen, they're going to be talking about credit. And a lot of you had questions about credit, building credit, establishing credit. Well, that's what they're focusing on. All right. Again, the market president of Comerica Bank. I can't make this up to you. We just have great partners and great relationships that give us awesome information. So with that being said, we're going to close out. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care. And I think we're going to close out with a little bit of I Love BC. I think that's what we usually do, right?
Oh, Lord, I have to find it. Let me stop recording and then I'll find it. Okay.
All right.